In the robot combat fanbase, it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from, I am sure you have heard of hexbugs. And if you have heard of hexbugs, then you definitely have heard of chaotic robotics. They have pioneered and have remained a cornerstone of the hexbug community and general robot combat fanbase as a whole. Chaotic has made hundreds of hexbugs throughout their YouTube career, and out of the hundreds of bots that have graced the robot chaos arena, none have had a more turbulent history than Seizure. Information about this era in Seizure's existence is limited, as Chaotic didn't make their YouTube channel yet, and much of it was unfilmed. But here is what I could gather. Seizure was one of the last bots created who was a part of the original 16 that Chaotic made back in July to August of 2018. It had a simple shell made of paper and tape. Details were done in marker, and it ran using a stock build-your-own-bot chassis and was a simple pusher. It fought under disguise in some unfilmed tournaments that Chaotic did with their filming buddy.
Our filming partner!
Sometime after Seizure was built, a bendy straw was added onto it, which would function as a hook of some sort. Something interesting of note is that this version of Seizure was involved in the very first Chaotic's robotics controversy. It involved their Petunia model and filming buddy. When Seizure fought Petunia, Chaotic thought it ended up beating it, but filming buddy disagreed. The hook edition was brought into question on whether it was the primary weapon of Seizure. A rock paper scissors match ensued, and filming buddy won, so Petunia ended up getting the win. And with that, Seizure's pre-YouTube career has come to a close, as in December of 2018, Chaotic would create their channel, and Seizure's story would continue on and blossom. Seizure would make its debut on YouTube on July 10th, 2019, in episode 3 of Chaotic's 50 subscriber tournament. The field was a 32 robot single elimination bracket which spanned 8 episodes. Seizure was drawn up against Pizza Time in the first round as its first ever match on YouTube. And quoting Chaotic on this one, it did about as good as a paper shell on top of a box could do. It basically boiled down to Pizza Time grabbing and controlling Seizure with its crusher, releasing Seizure and Seizure doing some fun spinning and occasional pushing, and rinse and repeat that for 3 minutes until Seizure gets put on the trap and they lose a 7-0 judge's decision. Quite the televised start, wasn't it? Seizure would also make an appearance on July 23rd, 2019, where Chaotic showcases all the robots that have been made at the time. And looking back now, it's crazy how far his channel has come. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Seizure was absent from the channel for a while, missing out on Robot Chaos Season 1, but it returned in the first part of the 250 subscriber tournament on September 30th, 2019. Seizure gained a major makeover for this competition, now being built on a Witch Doctor V1 chassis, being extremely colorful, and its primary weapon becoming an angled overhead spinner made out of Lego. This version of Seizure was made completely by Filming Buddy. In the single elimination 16 robot tournament, the brand new Seizure was drawn against the grizzled wedgie veteran Atomic Green. The match started off decently for the new and improved Seizure, tearing off the side armor of Atomic Green and proved to be a lot zippier than the old version. However, despite all the praise I just gave it, the weapon and pushing power left a lot to be desired. It spent most of the match getting bullied by the equally nippy Atomic Green, who also had superior pushing power. Seizure was attempting to remain aggressive, but it was very difficult. It was very deep into the match, and Atomic Green was cruising to an easy victory. All they needed to do was they drove onto the trap, and Seizure somehow pulled off the win. It more so survived, but a win's a win, as it moved on to face Spellbound, another Witch Doctor V1 chassis, in the quarterfinals. Going into this match, odds were stacked against Seizure. Fan predictions for who would win the tournament were in favor of Spellbound. Both shared brief scares going onto the trap, and Spellbound was able to get a great push on Seizure into the back right wall. But Seizure, in a massive spurt of power, shoved back. It managed to get its opponent firmly stuck on the trap, and Seizure would get a major upset victory and moved on to the Final Four. And its opponent in the Final Four was a build-your-own-bot hammer Enforcer. Both robots had apprehensive starts, but eventually Seizure rushed in for a glancing blow on Enforcer's wedge. Seizure was zipping around the arena, and Enforcer momentarily got itself stuck on the arena trap, but was able to get away. Enforcer retaliated and got a solid shot on the paper armor that was on top of Seizure. Seizure was able to escape and push their opponent into the left front corner of the arena. Some exchange pushing, shoving, and zipping around ensued, and Seizure was able to get a nice period of control by getting to the side of Enforcer. Both robots were trying to jockey for position, but then, in a critical blunder, Enforcer beelined straight onto the trap, getting itself stuck like an absolute moron. But then, they unmoroned themselves by using their hammer swings to free themselves from the trap. Following this, Seizure did have some scares, like getting their bar hung up on the back right corner of the wall and having Enforcer push them almost onto the trap. Some more back and forth exchanges ensued between the two robots, and it would go the distance, ending in a 4-3 judges' decision in favor of Seizure. Seizure's luck has been incredible throughout this tournament, but it had its work cut out for it in the final. It was facing the terrifying overhead spinner, Blindside. The two bar spinners fired up their weapons and had a weapon-on-weapon hit in the center, sending Seizure into the front wall. Seizure charged back, but Blindside had weapon mass on their side, tearing off a piece of Seizure's spinner. Seizure was smacked hard whenever they charged in, losing even more parts of their Lego blade. They managed to tank some more blows and get up close to stop Blindside's formidable blade and got some control in. But that period of control was short-lived, as Blindside spun back up to speed and ripped off bigger chunks of Seizure's bar, even tossing Seizure towards the trap at one point. Seizure remained aggressive, trying to stop Blindside's spinner whenever it could get the chance to, but when they did, Blindside was able to even out the pushing match. This went on for a good bit until Blindside's blade fell off, which was a major opportunity for Seizure. However, Seizure's lackluster pushing power was immediately taken advantage of by the weaponless Blindside, and was even hung up on their opponent's blade at one point. Some more back and forth pushing from Blindside would end the fight as it would go to the judges. Seizure's dream run would end via a 6-1 judges' decision for Blindside. It was a hard-fought loss, but Seizure could hold its head high, as they had redeemed themselves from their previous tournament appearance, even if they heavily rode their luck along the way. The new Seizure had proven to be a major threat and a wild card in a stacked field of robots, hoping to carry this momentum into its next appearance. The third random fight montage would be the next presence of Seizure. Its first fight was against Pizza Time, a rematch from its very first battle on YouTube. And I'ma keep it a buck, this match had nothing of note other than Pizza Time grabbing and controlling Seizure, Seizure getting away, even Pizza Time pushing it onto the trap. But the finishing move was very comedic. Pizza Time somehow became a flipper, overturning Seizure and getting the KO. The next and last Seizure appearance of the video was a rumble between it, Spellbound, and a really dummy thick Hydra replica. But before I cover this, I will only be discussing what involves Seizure in the rumble. You can watch the whole fight on Chaotic's channel, which will be linked in the description below. Seizure got its weapon spinning, but it couldn't get good shots in. However, it was able to land a nice hit on the back of Hydra. Seizure not being able to self-right would prove an issue since it's facing a flipper, so they needed to not get overturned at all costs. Hydra was able to toss Spellbound out of the arena, so it was just it and Seizure left in the battle. And Hydra got a swift flip on Seizure and then chucked it out. Seizure's next tournament appearance was in the first episode of the 300 subscribers tournament. It was seeded 15th based on its past performances and was basically unchanged from its last appearance. Seizure was matched up against a refurbished Lancelot, a Witch Doctor V2 with a cute little lance on top of it, seeded 18th. Interestingly, Lancelot V2 was also made by Filming Buddy. Seizure did not get their weapon spinning out of the box, but they showed their decent pushing power on the all-new Lancelot by using their rear end. Seizure finally got their spinner up to speed, but was stopped pretty much immediately because Lancelot tore off their bar. To be honest, there really isn't much to say about this fight other than these two just pushed against each other for the remaining time. And Lancelot won a 4-3 decision in the end, eliminating Seizure from the tournament. Seizure was back for more in Robot Chaos Season 2, with minimal upgrades or updates other than new colors for its spinner. Their first match was against Duck, a modified Minotaur Hexbug, and I would like to note that these two have fought before, but that was before Chaotix's channel existed. Seizure got its spinner spun up to try and get some good shots in. However, as soon as the fight started, it was already over as Seizure drove onto the trap and was counted out, giving Duck probably the easiest win of his career. Seizure now had an 0-1 record and needed to bounce back in his second match against the reigning champion Snowblind, a BYOB chassis with a low wide scoop. This match was not very eventful as Seizure was on the back foot the entire time. They had their spinner going the whole match, but the smothering pushing power of Snowblind never gave Seizure the chance to get a good shot in. But eventually, after some more dominance from Snowblind, they pushed Seizure onto the trap where they were counted out once more and fell to an 0-2 record along with falling out of contention for the bracket. Seizure would have one more fight to try and get a win that season, but it would not be easy as they were drawn against Abomination, a spiky tracked pusher with a wedge who was sitting at a 1-1 record. A win for Abomination would send them through to the bracket. Seizure, as always, got their weapon up to speed to get those all-important damage points. Abomination stayed aggressive, pushing and shoving them around. They even managed to get Seizure onto the trap at one point. But Seizure was able to get away, but Abomination stayed on top of them, remaining aggressive. A good shove into the back wall led to Seizure's weapon falling off. But in a weird twist, this allowed Seizure to outpush Abomination, eventually flipping Abomination over. With no self-righting mechanism or lack of invertibility, Abomination was counted out, giving Seizure a win and taking Abomination out of bracket contention. Seizure finished with a disappointing 1-2 record, but they managed to end their season on a high. Chaotic announced that Seizure would be retired in the new, improved, and retired robots video. It was retired because it proved to be unsuccessful in its last few appearances on the channel, and the base would be used to make another angled horizontal spinner, Son of Carnage. Seizure did not appear on Chaotix's channel for a while, and missed out on both Robot Chaos Seasons 3 and 4. It would be over a year until Seizure would return to the arena, and they would return in the Ultimate Throwdown, a 32 robot single elimination tournament that happened between Robot Chaos Season 4 and Robot Chaos Season 5. For this tournament, Seizure received a major makeover, staying with the same kind of chassis as its previous version, but now gaining red tires, a nice blocky pattern on the body, and an all-new 3D printed spinning disc with a radiation symbol, which was a callback to its pusherbot days. Seizure's first fight was against a decorated veteran and the first powerful Hexbug spinner, Cyclone. The match started, Cyclone was sluggish out of the box as they had on their heaviest spinner. Seizure, on the other hand, was moving very well, zipping across the arena. A weapon-to-weapon hit sent one of the coins on Cyclone's spinner flying, causing them to become unbalanced. Some more jockeying for position from Seizure led to another coin being ripped off. Cyclone was ironically the one shaking around like it was having a seizure. Seizure's opponent was slowing and wearing itself out as Seizure was circling and remaining aggressive until landing a finishing blow to knock Cyclone out. During the countout, Seizure landed one more hit and flipped itself over in the process. Thankfully, Cyclone was already being counted out beforehand, and Seizure would move on in the bracket. Seizure's second match would be against Mad Catter, a modified Witch Doctor V2 Hexbug with a very nice decorated front wedge. Both robots spun up their weapons and Mad Catter tried to use the wedge to deflect Seizure's disc. Seizure seemed to be having the speed advantage, trying to circle and get the right angle to hit the sides and rear of Mad Catter. Mad Catter did get stuck on the pit at one point, and Seizure took full advantage, tearing off a piece of side armor from the ferocious feline. Soon after, Seizure reversed into the pit button and beelined into the back wall and got stuck. Mad Catter tried to take advantage, but got stuck on the pit. Both robots were counted out, resulting in a double knockout, and it would go to the judges. The win was given to Seizure via an 8-3 decision. Seizure advanced to the quarterfinals, where lying in waiting was a familiar foe, Blindside. Both robots had received substantial upgrades since their last encounter. Maybe without the Lego blade, Seizure could get the revenge. First contact was made on Seizure's rear, deflecting Blindside by the pit. Seizure managed to stall Blindside's weapon for a bit, but their own weapon was stalling as well. By the time Seizure got its weapon back up and running, Blindside's weapon was at its killing speed. Subsequent hits managed to pop Seizure up into the air, almost flipping it over. But then, Seizure's weapon stalled again, but they tried to remain aggressive. It was all for naught, however, as one shot was all it took to end Seizure's impressive return run. Seizure was flipped up and over, unable to self-right, and they were counted out. Another loss to Blindside. It was a welcome return for Seizure, finishing in the quarterfinals, and this version was the best Seizure has ever looked. And I'm excited to see what it can do in Robot Chaos Season 5. Oh. It didn't appear. They were once again retired by Chaotic, and their chassis was used as a test dummy for new robots. Hopefully we will see Seizure again soon. Seizure didn't appear any time after Robot Chaos Season 5, missing out on Season 6 as well. Thankfully, Seizure returned once again. Chaotic released a video on May 30th, 2022. It was back. They kept the red chassis with the Tetris blocks decorating the top. They now had Fruit Loops for tires, and their spinner was blue and silver now. Overall, it was very similar to the last time we saw it, and it seemed like it had good power from the weapon. Seizure returned to Robot Chaos for the first time since Season 2. It's now Season 7. Holy shit! Seizure's first match was against the very dangerous looking Norwalk Havoc Robot League rep of Hive Smashin'. It's basically a tombstone chassis with a 3D printed weapon disc. The match started decently for Seizure, getting some minor glancing blows onto Hive Smashin', but then a weapon-on-weapon impact caused the disc to be torn clean off of Seizure, turning it into, as Chaotic put it, a
colorful box.
Seizure, now weaponless, was at the mercy of Hive Smashin'. They were just thrown around like a ragdoll, taking direct hits to the wheels. Seizure got sent by the pit, barely moving, and decided to throw itself down. Not a great start for Seizure, sitting at 0-1. Now was Seizure's chance to even out their record, as it was pitted against Ice Wave, which was coming off a surprising win against Complete Control, who was a former champion. As both these bots were spinners, they both got their spinners spinning up to speed. Both robots have shown that they have had drive issues, but they were able to get some weapon-on-weapon hits. Oh, and Seizure's weapon fell off again. Seizure was subjected to subpar pushing attacks from Ice Wave using their ultimate weapon, the wedge, because Ice Wave's weapon died. But that didn't matter, because after taking 84 light years of trying and failing to hit the pit, it eventually did, and one good push got Seizure to fall into the pit and falling to an 0-2 record. Seizure desperately needed to get a win to even have a chance of being considered for the bracket. They would get their chance against a fellow 0-2 robot, Monstrosity, a robot originally from Explosive Robotics. Now I would explain what happened in this match, but I'll let Chaotic and Filming Buddy do the talking.
And the fight is underway, cutting to the second camera, and great start, Seizure. You've rammed into the wall.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of robots do that in the start. It's what the cool kids do. And here comes Monstrosity, kind of circling back.
And there goes
the weapon, yeah.
Okay, that was a hit we've been waiting to see from Monstrosity this season. Pretty good power from that spinner, and at this point, it feels like Seizure's just moving in slow motion. It's like they're a snail. A really sad snail that's confused, doesn't know what they're doing, and Monstrosity is just sitting there slowly kicking them down the street.
Yeah, I mean, Monstrosity, their spinner is looking pretty good right now, and Seizure goes into the pit.
I think it's a good thing that ended that. That's already over. Monstrosity
stays alive.
I guess it's a good win for them. In the end, Seizure didn't do anything, bumped into the wall immediately. They ripped off that spinner with a nice, meaty shot, but in the end, Seizure was just terrible this season. It was like a grandpa.
Thank God they're gone.
Thank goodness. I can't believe that this is one of the robots that we brought back for this. Why did I do that?
To be honest, Chaotic, I don't know either. But yeah, Seizure sucked complete ass and is 0-3, therefore eliminated from bracket contention. Seizure had poor performances before, but this was an all-new low. Something needed to change. And boy did things change. The new Seizure first appeared on Chaotic's channel in the bracket reveal/breakdown of Robot Madness, a 64 robot single elimination tournament. It was matched up against Electric Boogaloo in the southwest region of the bracket. It was ranked 6th overall in that region. Quoting Chaotic on this, he thinks the new Seizure is the biggest dark horse in the entire tournament. This redesign was extremely successful in testing according to Chaotic, going 8-1. It beat some powerful spinners like Ocean Man and Topbot, and it even gave the then reigning champion Atomic Green a run for its money. Seizure went into Robot Madness with a lot of hype. Also, the redesigned Seizure was made with the same Bite Force chassis that Endgame and Ice Wave were made out of. But before Robot Madness, there are 2 videos that I need to get through which also feature Seizure. The first of which was episode 2 of Chaotic's King of the Hill. Seizure was the last robot to appear in the video and was ready to challenge the king so far.
Business Tombstone.
Both weapons spun up, and Business Tombstone got a really nice pop on Seizure, which sent Seizure close to the pit button. Nothing much of note happened for about 2 minutes or so, until the pit was opened. Some shots from Business Tombstone sent Seizure almost into the pit, but the bee flew a bit too close and got caught right on the edge. All Seizure needed to do from there was to tap it a bit to send the bee into the depths. Seizure ended the gauntlet as the king of the hill. The second video was a massive 20 robot rumble. The robots in said rumble were Red Baron and Omnom from Penguin Robotics, Standalone and Zinger, originals by Chicken Strips Robotics, Luma's Plow, original by Luma Kid, Loki, Scorpios, Atomic Green, Krusty Grab, Dark Matter from Move Robotics, Warbird, original by Theo Hummel, Jab, Snowblind, Rampage, Blindside, Business Tombstone, Sad Octopus, original by Duckbots, Ocean Man, Osprey, original by WT Dynamics, and of course, Seizure. Jesus Christ. Since there are 20 robots in here and cannot focus on all of them at once, since this video is long enough already, I'll just focus on Seizure. If you want to watch this match without me talking over it, link to the rumble and all the fights I used for this will be in the description. As the match started, Atomic Green charged at Seizure and was able to lift it up a bit. Soon after, Seizure was stuck against the wall, pushing against Warbird. After Warbird decided to leave it alone, Seizure became the center of a bot orgy as Business Tombstone, Snowblind, and Sad Octopus were all surrounding it. Seizure got away from the right corner only to go to the front left corner and get pinned by Loki, who was pinning Warbird onto it. Seizure was up front and center in the arena since I forgot to mention that all the robots' drive were being controlled by one controller. Seizure was scooped up by Luma's Plow and pushed it into the pit button. At the same time, Ripperoni was added into the rubble, for some reason. Seizure's disc got stuck on top of Warbird's bar for a bit, but then got away. But then they decided to rip one of Osprey's wedges clean off of its mounting. Seizure deflected off of Atomic Green's front wedge a couple times, sending it airborne, but still landing back on its wheels. At around the 2-minute mark of the video, only 6 robots were still active and moving. Those included Seizure, Luma's Plow, Loki, Rampage, Atomic Green, and Osprey. Oh wait, never mind. Make that 5 since Rampage drove right into the pit. Seizure managed to stay away from their opponents congregating by the pit. However, Osprey charged in with a big shot, sending Seizure up into the air. In the blink of an eye, it was Atomic Green and Seizure left, and a nice shot from Seizure sent Atomic Green close to the pit by the already long gone Omnom. A couple more hits from Seizure got one set of Atomic Green's wheels hanging over the pit before Atomic Green eventually fell right in, leaving Seizure as the 20 Robot Rumble winner. Now for Robot Madness. As I stated earlier, Seizure's first match was against Electric Boogaloo in episode 2 of Robot Madness. Prior to the match, Filming Buddy and a sprinkling of Chaotic were hyping it up as this version was the real deal. Immediately, as the match started, the thwacking arm fell off of Electric Boogaloo, with zero interaction from Seizure. Seizure spent the whole match punting Electric Boogaloo around the arena, hitting the wheels until it eventually got stuck on the pit, which was already starting to open. Seizure was chewing on the wheels until it broke the pit and Electric Boogaloo fell in. It was a strong start for Seizure, with a dominant opening round display, and they would be drawn up against Captain Shredderator. Oh. The final match of the round of 32 in the southwest region of the bracket started off with some small deflections from Seizure's spinner off of Shredderator's sloped shell. After a bit of gentle tapping, Seizure ripped off a piece of top armor from the captain. Seizure opened the pit and was showing some good control and weapon power, even going airborne after another good deflection. Some more glancing blows and Seizure ramming itself into the pit button later. Seizure was comfortably on top in the match, even getting a good shot to send Shredderator close to the left side's drum. Seizure got a huge hit to launch it to the back corner close to where the pit was, which was very cagey stuff for the captain, but they were able to get away. Both robots were getting some good weapon-on-weapon engagements until one good shot sent Shredderator to the pit and they were hanging over the edge. One more hit from Seizure sent the captain in, and Seizure would move on to the next round. The grand final episode was going to cover the round of 16 all the way to the grand final match. Seizure was drawn up against Jab in the Sweet 16. For this match, Seizure was going to use a fork configuration to try and combat Jab's wedge. Seizure got its weapon spun up as Jab box rushed them, but the forks on Seizure were doing a decent job of getting underneath Jab. Unfortunately for Seizure, a good push allowed Jab to get underneath Seizure. Interestingly, one of the forks got wedged under Jab's top plate. Jab was still being very aggressive, ramming themselves into Seizure's disc, able to get under quite consistently. Seizure got one of their forks under the wedge and made a nice push onto Jab towards the open pit, and very nearly got Jab in, but Jab slipped away to the back right corner of the arena. Jab was still being the aggressor, charging into Seizure, even trying to bring their spike into play, but Seizure got a nice hit on one of the rear wheels, and it seemed that Jab was having mobility issues. Seizure's weapon did stop momentarily, but got it back up and running. Following that, a hard hit from Seizure and a nice ram from Jab. This match was very close and hard to call, as both were being very effective. Seizure's weapon was still once again, and now trying to use their forks to get under Jab and succeeding. They were carefully lining up Jab and positioning it for a charge into the pit, and they had done it. A great shove from Seizure had Jab stuck, teetering on the edge. Seizure came in with a gentle nudge to drop Jab into the pit. A very back and forth match, but a smart play by Seizure moved them on to the quarterfinals. Seizure's round of 8 matchup was against Sad Octopus, which was a replica of one of Duckbots' beetle weights, which has competed on NHRL on numerous occasions. Seizure removed their forks for this match after Filming Buddy realized that the 2 previous times that this match was recorded, the forks were useless. Both robots spun up their weapons, and both landed big weapon-on-weapon shots. Sad Octopus sent Seizure up and spinning, while Seizure was getting hard smacks on the weapon and sides of the depressed cephalopod. They landed many hits onto each other, but a hard shot from Seizure right onto the weapon of Sad Octopus led to the belt coming right off of its pulley. Seizure had the opportunity it needed, a weaponless box to beat into submission. Seizure was taking full advantage, hitting the weapon and mounting of Socto hard. They had to bail for the pit to even have a hope in winning this match. Seizure was continuing to pile on the hits. A shot on the back corner of Socto sent them spinning towards the back right corner of the arena. Sad Octopus was not going down without a fight, They were throwing everything they got at Seizure, hoping to send Seizure flying and flipping themselves over. Maybe even a lucky deflection into the pit, but Seizure still stayed strong. Sodor's efforts were in vain, as one massive hit sent it across the arena and into the pit. Seizure was moving on to the semi-finals. Seizure has had an amazing run so far, but now it was facing its biggest challenge yet, the former two-time champion, Behemoth. Both robots were back in a semi-final match after long droughts. It was time to see who would return to a finals match. The fight started with Seizure immediately getting rushed by Behemoth, using their scoop to try and corral and bully. The scoop was holding strong and deflecting Seizure. A glancing blow got Seizure hung up on the left wall, close to the drums. Behemoth graciously came to free them, not without getting some free lifts in. Seizure got his weapon back up to speed and got some more hits on Behemoth, which started to take their toll. Behemoth had lost one side drive for like 10 seconds. The pit was now open. Both robots were making their push to the end of this match. Behemoth throwing their scoop right into the spinner, hoping to get a lucky deflection, but Seizure, full throttling their weapon, was trying to avoid that scoop and to hit those vulnerable sides and rear. Seizure got some beautiful shots in, sending Behemoth spinning. Behemoth was reeling from those attacks, looking stunned and disoriented. The hits were further piling up, and in the back right corner of the arena, Behemoth had lost one side of its drive once again. Seizure, who was hanging back, watching its wounded prey limp and tire itself, went in for the kill, getting a nice flurry of shots. But it was one hit on the backside that killed Behemoth. Seizure got a few more hits in just to be sure that it had won, and it did. Behemoth was counted out, and Seizure moved on to its first final since the 250 subscribers tournament all those years ago. Seizure had a lot of hype going into this tournament and exceeded many's expectations. They had finally made it back to the title fight. They had fully redeemed themselves after their abysmal Season 7 run, but they had one more fight, and it would be their hardest yet. They were up against the Robot Chaos Season 6 champion and icon of chaotic robotics, Ocean Man. The lights were on, the countdown began, it was time to crown a champion. Seizure and Ocean Man spun up their discs as Ocean Man charged into Seizure, showing their immediate speed advantage, knocking it into the wall. Another massive weapon-on-weapon hit followed, sending Seizure flying into the pit button and Ocean Man spinning. More shots popped Seizure into the air, but a charge from Ocean Man led to a weapon-on-weapon hit that sent Ocean Man onto the shelf. It then got free and continued the barrage, ramming themselves into Seizure, both weapons at full speed, but Seizure was starting to come back. They were starting to win the weapon-on-weapon engagements, but Seizure's slower drive was being exploited by Ocean Man with their constant charging. Seizure still held firm, keeping their weapon at full speed. They were in the center of the arena and Ocean Man by the front left drum. A ram sent Seizure up, but they landed well. Another hit made Seizure spin to the side, and that was all Ocean Man needed for one last hit. A hit that sent Seizure down the pit, ending Seizure's immaculate run to the final. Ocean Man had reclaimed their crown. They were the Robot Madness champion. Seizure finished with another second place. They may not have won Robot Madness, but they can be damn proud of their major turnaround. They could drive away with their disc held high. Now you may think we only have one more tournament to go, but we have another to cover, which took place before Chaotix March Mayhem. But we have to hop over to another channel, DuckBots. In the summer of 2024, DuckBots SummerSlam first aired on YouTube. It was a 64 robot single elimination tournament featuring robots from other channel, including Chaotix, some of which were sent over, like Blip, Tornado, Reaper, and of course, Seizure. Oh yeah, and another robot in the tournament, Epilepsy Warning, used one of Seizure's old discs, the Robot Chaos Season 7 one specifically. Anyways, on to Seizure's run in SummerSlam. Seizure's first match was against Birdbrain, which is a replica of a robot which appeared on Chaotic Robotics in Robot Madness and Robot Chaos. So it was basically a Robot Chaos match that we never got, because we were absolutely dying to know if the blue box would defeat another big spinner. Seizure was being hyped up as a big favorite for the tournament, Duck even saying it could win it all. And the match went about as expected. Seizure spun up, and Birdbrain was wildly swinging their pecker, and right off the bat, on the first hit, the hammer was disabled. Seizure was keeping their weapon on at full speed and absolutely mutilating Birdbrain, even if it did send itself flying half of the time. The side guards were ripped off, one of the wings were torn off, and soon enough, the battery cover came loose, the wheels came off, and even a battery rolled out onto the arena. A delicious bird carcass for Seizure to play with as Birdbrain was counted out. In the round of 32, Seizure would face Sawsome, a two-wheel drive robot with a metal saw. It's awesome. Perhaps even Sawsome. Okay, my bad. On to the fight. Both robots got their blades up to speed and Seizure was circling around, trying and succeeding in getting some glancing blows. A well-placed shot onto the saw sent Sawsome saw rolling across and out of the arena. Sawsome was running away and Seizure was pursuing. It then landed a devastating shot onto Sawsome's weapon mount as it was now dangling by only a wire or two. Seizure, with blood in its metaphorical eyes, capitalized on its limping opponent, ripping a wheel off of Sawsome, punting it out of the arena. Seizure, with surgical precision tearing apart its opponent and eventually throwing it out of the arena, Seizure would move on to the round of 16. Seizure was in familiar territory, the round of 16, and with 2 easy knockout victories, Seizure was sure to make another finals run, but before that, they needed to get past Revenge of Mouse, a mouse-themed undercutter/flail robot, which was a replica of a Beetleweight made by Tom Farkas that competed at the National Havoc Robot League. Mouse was quick out of the box, using their flail to disorient Seizure, but with their weapons still going at full bore, Seizure quickly put an end to that nonsense by ripping off Mouse's disc. Not long after, they ripped off the flail and got them stuck on the wall. Seizure went in for a huge hit freeing them, but Mouse was on borrowed time at that point. Seizure would land a shot that would flip over Mouse, another animal robot that Seizure could play with until Seizure eventually chucked Mouse over the wall. Seizure was now in the quarterfinals and would square off against a duck Hexbug base with a long, low wedge and a lifting lance called Scrappy. Seizure spun up and both robots met in the center of the arena, but Scrappy's low wedge scooped it up and sent it into the front left corner of the arena, and Seizure got his blade hung up on the wall. Scrappy came in to free them, but remained relentless with their pushing ability. Seizure could not get any good hits on Scrappy until it managed to take off one of the rear wheels. It was being smothered by Scrappy and being pushed all around the arena, eventually getting stuck underneath the arena lights. Scrappy gave Seizure a free unstick at the beginning of the match, but Scrappy was not going to let Seizure get free, so Seizure got counted out and their SummerSlam run would end. They had an amazing run, but Scrappy was too low and too aggressive for the destructive spinner. After SummerSlam, Seizure would be sent back to Chaotic. Seizure would return for a special tournament in 2025 called March Mayhem, and they would be going into it as a big favorite due to their success in Robot Madness. Also, Chaotic, you liar, I thought you said Robot Madness would be the last biggest tournament! March Mayhem was similar to BattleBots World Championship 1, as there would be 24 robots split off into 12 qualifying fights. The winners would automatically move on, while the 12 losers would be waiting for a wildcard spot in the single elimination tournament, which was a round of 16 bracket with the 12 winners. Only 4 wildcards would be chosen, so every robot would need to do their utmost, win or lose. Seizure would be matched up against Chaos, a 2-wheel drive lifter robot which is a replica of a Battles RC replica of a Viper Kit Antweight, which is the whole reason for Chaotic's name. Who knew? The match was quite a dominant one for Seizure for the most part. Despite Chaos's best efforts of trying to use their lifter, they really had no chance as Seizure's reliable and powerful weapon kept on piling on the hits that we were used to seeing from it. Something we are also used to seeing it doing is sending itself flying after hitting sturdy wedges, which is what Chaos has. Seizure did have some cagey moments like almost flipping itself over a couple of times after some good deflections on the wedge, but they were able to still remain aggressive, even causing some damage to Chaos. And Seizure took an easy judge's decision win to move on to the top 16. Seizure's first match in the bracket was against a 4-wheel drive egg beater called Tryhard. Tryhard is a replica of a Battle RC robot and plastic Antweight from Duckbots. Seizure and Tryhard got their spinners up to speed, both getting good weapon-on-weapon shots. Seizure was getting popped into the air by Tryhard's egg beater, but Seizure was still remaining on the attack, keeping their disc spun up. But in the blink of an eye, a massive hit sent Seizure skywards and onto its back by the blue arena drum. For the first time in a long time, Seizure was upside down and they were being counted out. Tryhard got the hit it needed and they would be moving on. And now we're all caught up on Seizure's turbulent and sporadic career, starting life as one of the first Hexbug robots Chaotic ever made, and being a boring, quite frankly forgettable box, which became a powerful underdog with a colorful spinning bar, and then soon fell from grace. It would be reborn as a powerful beast who took down one of the channel's best in its return, and it would disappear again. It would soon reawaken once more, but good god, people wish it would go back to sleep because it was so bad. As soon as people were beginning to turn on it, Seizure would rise from the dead and become its final form, one of the most reliable, entertaining, chaotic, and downright destructive robots that Chaotic has ever made. From start to finish, Seizure has remained a highlight of the series it has appeared in. One thing is for certain, Robot Chaos and even the Hexbug community as a whole would not be the same if it weren't for Seizure. Hello, ThatBuilderBoi here. If you made it to the end, thank you all for watching. I know that this video is very different to what I normally do, but I wanted to try something different. And this has been a video idea that I wanted to do for a very long time now, and I finally followed through on it. Again, I want to extend a special thank you to Chaotic and Duck for helping me make this video. You both were a great help with providing previously unknown information that would make this all the more informative for our viewers. So please go subscribe to them if you haven't already. I mean, I'm sure you're subscribed to Chaotic. At the time of recording this, congratulations, Duck, for reaching 300 subscribers. You absolutely deserved it. And I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you want to see more videos like this, please let me know in the comments below. And that is all for now. I will see you in the next video.
Thanks for watching. Seizure is currently holding my family hostage. Signed, KR.